You're listening to Superpower Up with multidimensional master, superpower expert, and former counterintelligence agent, Tonya Dawn Recla. If you're ready to disrupt reality, then sit down, strap in, and prepare to experience the show that proves there is no spoon.
Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Recla, your superpower expert, and today we're talking about identifying superpowers. On last week's episode, we had Vish Chatterji on the show talking about how to harness yoga, right? Or use yoga to harness your superpowers. And the conversation was super fascinating around the idea of like, look, we can talk about yoga, and then we can really talk about yoga, and then we can, oh my gosh, like mystical art, earth-shattering, reality reshaping, talk about yoga, right? As with most things, it exists at multiple dimensions, and we get to interpret that however we want to. And in the course of that conversation, the dialogue around superpowers and its complexities came up, and it was really fascinating to listen to Vish's perspective from the kind of yoga Vedic perspectives and those traditions, in the sense that the superpowers are a byproduct of harnessing kind of your flow, if you will. And that's very, very similar to the position we hold here at Superpower Experts. Identifying superpowers is not a comic book exercise. Like, this is seriously supernatural, kind of spiritually given gifts that are spoken about in numerous traditions, to include the Christian Bible. And so we can't disregard them just as parlor tricks or something that belongs in a Harry Potter movie. We really need to start looking at, like, why, one, are they so kind of terrifying on some level, because they threaten that kind of physical existence, the linear motif, if you will. And also, what are we supposed to do with them, right? Because, and on some level, acknowledging like a world that has people in it who possess these abilities also, we could expect, has some balancing mechanism for those powers, which we often see in the duality, right? Until we kind of move right into that oneness component, a lot of times what we see is the flip side of the coin, right? The light side and the shadow side. We tend to refer to it as like the challenge or the gift, or, it's got all kinds of constructs that it's been referred to. But one could assume that if we are talking about things like harnessing those abilities, then at some point we'll create situations in which it's necessary that we use them. Right? I mean, I don't think that that's that far of a stretch, given the fact that we're stretching already into the superpowers dialogue. And then on top of that, the concept of identifying with or identifying as your superpowers, right? So I'm a psychic, I'm an intuit, I'm an empath, I'm a this, I'm a, really keeps us rooted and limited in a frequency of the projection that most of us are kind of done with at this point in time. And so really check yourself about where you're saying, I am this, I am that, and see what sort of attachments you might have to that. Absolutely fine in branding and marketing, whatever, for sure you can claim that, but check in about your energetic attachments to that. So that's what we're talking about today. Before we jump off to break here really quickly, I encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to walk around in our ecosystem and explore some of our concepts, particularly the entire network of shows that we have with amazing, remarkable hosts and amazing shows that talk to just fascinating guests about all kinds of different topics. The thing that we get complimented on the most is just the conversation and the connection that gets to be had in the midst of that. Then check it out. Check out our superpower programs. If you are drawn to this work, you're here to have an impact, but you're finding it challenging to kind of stay at a high enough vibration to really make some true transformational changes in order to do that and have an impact. And we're happy to help. It's what we exist to do. Go to superpowerexperts.com. You can also download the app anywhere the app is if you search for Superpower Experts. Stay with us. We're talking today about identifying superpowers, and we'll be right back. Hello, everyone. This is Tonya Dawn Recla, Executive Director of Superpower Experts, and we want to thank each of you for making Superpower Up the #1 podcast network for personal development and spiritual growth. Because people like you have the courage to say that mindfulness, healthy living, disrupting reality, the pursuit of consciousness, responsible entrepreneurship, and radical parenting matter, We now amass over 1 million downloads monthly in more than 90 countries. Our numbers keep growing because there are far more people willing to live divergently than mass media wants to acknowledge. For you, the change makers, the light bearers, the way showers, we say thank you. If you're ready to take the next step in your evolution, go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz. And as Tonya Recla, our youngest podcaster, likes to remind us, remember, we all have superpowers and we can change the world. We're back and we're talking today about identifying superpowers. I'm Tonya Dawn Recla, and this is Disrupt Reality. Last week, we talked with Vish Chatterji about using yoga to harness your superpowers. And in the midst of that conversation, we just really scratched the surface on what's possible but hinted at the depth of the wisdom that is part of both the Vedic tradition as well as the yoga tradition, and really looking under the surface of why, where did this come from, how was it delivered, who delivered it, for what purpose, what were we supposed to use this, what is it informing, and how have we based human behavior and human consciousness off of that, and how does it inform this kind of human potential, personal power, wave of influence that we're seeing in the personal development and spiritual growth spaces. It's worth finding your gap, right? And what I mean by that is that in your discovery process after awakening, you may explore all kinds of modalities, all kinds of practices. That was my experience. That's the experience of a lot of people, because we're looking for that place where our purpose, our mission, our experiences, we call it kind of the big kahuna. And it's like what we've all been preparing for. And when we meet up in that space very, very clearly, it's like a whoomp, and you just settle in and you build, and everything changes in your existence from that point forward. But you got to kind of find it. And the only way to really find it is, one, to go looking, but also to be able to gauge the resonance of that. Well, in order to do that, we're talking about using sensory perceptors that aren't part of our 5 accepted perceptions, right? Like the sense of smell, taste, touch, you know them at this point. What lies beyond that? And then it stands to reason that if we have abilities to gauge what lies beyond that, then there's something that lies beyond it. Well, what is that, right? And what information is that? And it's important to remember, it is still just information. I don't care if you're harnessing emotional energy, thought energy, psychic energy. It's no different than getting on social media unless you're able to interpret it through an intuitive, connected filter. If you're not tapped into your own divinity, and if you don't have enough control over your internal landscape, and if you haven't learned how to manage certain aspects of yourself, then you can't trust them not to influence your interpretation of the information you're receiving. Flat out, folks, this is not stuff to be trifled with. So for those of you who are doing work in the world, and you awaken to your gifts and you hear the calling to help people, that's great, but you better make sure you're tapping into source when you're doing it. It's from source that the gifts come, and source can take them away. And for sure, if you're not doing it in full alignment with that, you will destroy things. Destruction comes from that. And so be really cautious with this stuff, folks. No need to like run around terrified, but if you're not attending to your own life, your own game, your own relationships, your own ability to create in this world. If you haven't made that transition from consumer to creator in your existence, then you're playing with fire. And it's great in the awakening process. Many a tarot card was read by a naive Tonya back in the day, and that's fine. We have to do that. And where you're communing with other people, and it be extremely transparent about where you are, and don't try to peddle your insecurities as a gift from the divine. It's just a really bad idea. And if you're in constriction, if you don't know, if you can't tell if you're in constriction or not, then best to do some internal work, right? It's easy. The parlor tricks are easy. The talking to God is easy. The having an angel appear to you is easy. The communing with fairies and dragons is easy, folks. That's the easy stuff once you get past the disbelief. The challenge is, what do you do with it in a very responsible and well-founded and resourced way, right? And that, in our opinion, requires some accountability and some oversight. So as we're going through this developmental process with these superpowers, And it wasn't, that's not a simple conversation. As I alluded to before the break, there are complexities. When we talk about empathy, well, what's the difference between being a true empath and having your intuitive channel come in through emotional energy? Two different strategies, and a lot of times those get smooshed together, and people get really frustrated when they can't do what the um, emotional expert is telling them to do. Well, that emotional expert is one or the other, and they may not know it. And so the strategies that they're using work for them and people like them. Well, it doesn't mean it's going to work for you. I spent many a moon very frustrated that I couldn't quiet my mind, only to discover that I'm never going to quiet my mind. That was never the goal for me. And that's okay. And there are techniques to learn how to manage it, right? So to be really clear on that, the process in this is not to try to get you to fit into specific boxes. It's to give you enough to play with and to help you navigate the complexity of those layers and those identities in order to get a clear understanding of not just who you are, but who you came here to be, right? Two different things. Who you are is the I am aspect, and then who you came here to be, that's a nut roll, right? We got to be able to like peel back all of that and deconstruct it, because it's now been laden with your experiences and your stories and your emotional responses and your constrictions and everything else from this lifetime and past lifetimes, and it's a journey, right? I'm not telling you all of this to say, oh my gosh, this is painful, you really shouldn't do it. You really have no choice but to do it. Do it this lifetime, do it the next, do it the one that follows. It just doesn't matter. You're going to do this work. So, for me, it's like, okay, got it. I tell people it's very similar to when I went to basic training, and it took me all of like 2 seconds to get it, right? I was 27 years old. I had a master's degree already. It was right after 9/11, and I enlisted so I could be a counter intel agent. There's the word. And that's all. I just wanted to participate in that dialogue and see where I could support and assist. And at basic training, the whole point is to break you down so you can get built back up. And it took 2 seconds of the drill sergeant screaming and spitting in my face before I was like, got it, understood. Like, you're it. I'm nothing. You rock. I suck. Like, you're smart. I'm stupid. Like, I got it. Roger that. And I was fairly compliant after that. And I was boring for them, because it's like, I get it. Like, I had done a thing or two by that point in time, and it just wasn't worth the ego fighting. And this is very, very similar, folks. Like, at some point in time, we all will acknowledge the fact that we were created, whether it was by an event, by a being, by energy, like whatever. Like, that debate, it will go on and on and on ad infinitum, I'm sure. But we were created, therefore something has more power than we do. Something does, right? And there is value in, even if the disbelief still exists, going, okay, I'm going to play with this concept and see where it takes me. And I will tell you, the proof becomes undeniable, but you can't see the proof until you take that step forward. It's a very bizarre thing when we've been trained and programmed in a linear reality where there's a specific cause and effect. This is different. Cause and effect get reversed here. You don't get to see the proof until you operate in faith. And you have to choose. You have to decide for yourself what that looks like. And all of that is enmeshed into this superpower dialogue. We cannot talk about supernatural abilities because we gotta be like, okay, where do they come from? Why do we have them? Why are some people awakening and others aren't? Where's the inspiration coming from? Right? Where for me, and that's all it was. It was just do this, do that. And there was bizarre things, right? Put your hand through the wall. Okay. And I just did it. It was like, whoa, that's weird. Like, what's that showing me? Well, it's showing me that it can be done, right? That there's no solidity. But it was that level of obedience. And there's no blind obedience here, folks. Like there was no way I was going to just simply acquiesce to something that I had no hope of understanding. But what it was the ability to incrementally trust and to commit to that relationship. It was through committing to that relationship that I was able to then be extremely obedient. Like when the whole organizational structure for Superpower Experts came on board, just download, like it was very, very specific blueprint that took a lot of faith to say, okay, and I'm still seeing layers pulled back. I'm still learning to understand what all of the components meant, but the guidance was very clear because I had chosen to engage in that relationship, because I had stepped out on faith, and because I said, you know what, I've taken this about as far as I can on my own. Very accomplished, right? Kind of checked all the boxes. I had the probably one of the greatest jobs ever, running around chasing spies. I had a husband, I have a daughter, I have two fabulous kids from my husband's first marriage. So 3 kids that would just like light up my life. And it's like, what? But there was still more. And that more wasn't going to come from Tonya's perseverance. Right. And it was, and that's a leap. And, I've shared multiple times about the decision to just simply play in that. And part of the decision to play came with my decision to play with the divine. Spirit and I are very, very, very close at this point in time, to the extent that the lines are extremely blurred. And there's beauty in that arrangement. And from there, we're able to see so much more. We're able to harness so much more of those gifts and so much more of that power, because we've demonstrated a responsible stewardship of it. And we've demonstrated an obedience to listen so that Spirit can either give us affirmation or give us course correction. And we demonstrate that we're obedient to the course correction. It's a relationship. It's a synergistic kind of ebb and flow that happens. And it is a commitment, and it is weird, and it goes against most of how we look at life. But it is, I don't know, maybe, okay, I'll be so bold to say it's what we're all looking for. Our true freedom lies on the other side of that commitment. And so it's not as simple as just saying, oh, this person has psychic ability. Like all of that is entangled together, and we did it on purpose, and we did it by design. And it makes a lot of sense when you can elevate up to a perspective high enough to observe it without being consumed by all of the attachments that we have at all of those various lower frequencies. And it's weird, and I get it. So really sit on this. Your kind of thing to think about this week is, what if, right? I'm going to give a big shout out to Mark Moore, the teaching pastor at our church here in Phoenix, CCV. And he said one time, he said, before I even ask you whether or not you believe this to be true, I'm going to ask you, would you want it to be true? Now, he didn't say, do you want this to be true? He said, would you want that to be true? And so that's what I want you to think about this week, is just before you let those pieces of you that want to disbelieve and want to protect you and are fearful and kind of want to papa everything, before you let the skepticism kick in, just sit in the space of, would you want it to be true that if you commit to a relationship with Source, that your life can change completely and dramatically in a way that you can't even possibly fathom right now? Would you want that to be true? Before you go putting caveats on it and limitations, just sit in that question and see what you come up with. You can always feel free to write to us at experts@superpowerexperts.com, or go to the site and convene there. As I said before the break, just go spend some time in our ecosystem. I think you'll find it's like a warm hug, right? It's a coming home for those of you who happen to be a little bit weird as well. Anyway, we appreciate your devotion, your loyalty to us. You can find out more at superpowerexperts.com. Download the app wherever you get an app. Just search for Superpower Experts, and we appreciate you. Until next time, go out, uncover your superpowers, and change the world. Take care, everyone.
Are you ready to discover your superpowers? Go now to superpowerexperts.com and take the Superpower quiz today.